I teach people to love themselves because I find that this is the answer for almost everything. You see, I believe that we're all 100% responsible for everything in our lives. I think we create all of our experiences by our thinking, feeling patterns. The thoughts we think and the words we speak are enormously powerful. And it's almost as though we think a thought or we speak a word and it goes out from us and it comes back to us as experience. Now we learn how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about life when we are very, very little. By the time we are 3 to 5 years old, we have a total mindset about who we are and what life is all about. And from then on, we keep reacting to experiences through this mindset. And while very often these thoughts that we have and these beliefs that we create or decisions that we make or agreements that we make at that age are very good and they help us to survive in what may be a very difficult situation, we often take them forward into life so that when we become adults, we're still operating out of a 3-year-old mentality or a 3-year-old decision. And that often doesn't work in our life. So we learn these things when we're very young, and we usually learn them from our parents. And this is not to blame them, because I really do believe that we're all victims of victims. And that it isn't possible for anybody to teach us anything that they don't know. If your mother didn't know how to love herself, there's no way she could teach you how to love yourself. And if your father didn't know how to love himself, then he couldn't teach you how to love yourself. And if you grew up in a family that was very angry or frightened, then you're likely to be an angry or frightened person, because that's what you learned as a child. It's not right or wrong or good or bad, it just is. Again, it doesn't matter what the problem is, or how long you've had it, or how difficult or chronic it is, or anything else, or whether it's brand new, or whether it runs in the family. There's only one thing I ever teach anyone, and that is loving the self. Because when we really love and appreciate and acknowledge who we are at this point in time and space, it's like little miracles happen everywhere. And life begins to flow for us. And we do what I call getting the green lights in the parking places and all those little things that make life so wonderful. And when we don't love and appreciate who we are, then we put up the barriers and the resistance to our own good. Now, I'm not talking about vanity because or arrogance, because that is not love, that is fear. I'm just talking about appreciating the being that we are. And I do a lot of work with people with mirrors. I'm going to ask you if you could open your arms, please. Thank you. You know, it's interesting because this is always a gesture of shutting off. And it's interesting to notice what is being said when we do that. Now, I can remember when I used to live my life, I lived like this. I was always like this. People would say, "Are you cold, Louise?" "Oh, no, I'm not cold." I was terrified. I was frightened. I didn't want to let anything new in because I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know what would happen. And when I work with people, when I workshops or classes or anything, I always try to get people just to open their arms so that we can let the new in. Remember, this is the subconscious mind and this is where we're holding. So this is saying nothing new will get in. So I always like to feel that I'm open and receptive to new ideas, and I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to change, and I'm willing to grow. And sometimes I don't want to, and sometimes it hits areas that I don't really care to change at the moment. And, you know, that's always an area that I know is important for me to work on. Another thing I do a lot with people is I do mirror work. I have people do their affirmations in a mirror. I have people talk to themselves in mirrors. I suggest that you get up in the morning and the first thing you do is you go to the mirror. Before you go to the bathroom or do anything, you know, when you're really at your most delightful, go to the mirror and say, "I love you, and what can I do for you today to make you happy?" And you may not get an answer for a while because that part of you doesn't trust you. But if you start doing that, you'll find a very good connection. A very healing thing to do is just a couple of times a day for a month or so is to look in a mirror in your own eyes and say, I love you. I really, really love you. And just let all those feelings come up and notice them. And if it's difficult for you to do that, notice that it's difficult for you to look in your own eyes and say, I love you. And ask yourself, now where did that nonsense come from? Remember, little tiny babies, when they're born, they absolutely adore themselves. And they're totally open, and they're full of love. They express themselves freely. They ask for what they want. They love their bodies from the top of the toe to the top of their head to the tip of their toes, and every point in between, including their own feces, which they'll gladly rub all over their bodies, because nobody's taught them guilt and shame.